How do you get so much done in your real estate business is something I get asked a lot by team leaders, broker owners on watching kind of from the outside in of us growing our company and me personally managing a lot of stuff on my own here at Onyx Homes. So in today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to really just answer that question. And the answer is within how we operate our business. And if I ever have any, I should say, when we open other businesses outside of Onyx Homes, I'm going to follow the exact same operating system with any other businesses. And we run on EOS is what it's called, Entrepreneur Operating System. I read a book that I was referred to by a million different people that is written by Gino Wickman. The book is called Traction. And in this book, it helps you take your priorities and get them very clear and straight on a long-term basis, and then you narrow down into the short term. So about 2.5 years ago, I read this book and I decided that I was going to implement this system into my business. I figured, why am I just making things up as I go? Why wouldn't I implement something that a lot of people talk about? So that was about 2.5 years ago at this point. I read the book once, made the decision, and then honestly, I had to read the book 5 more times before I actually felt comfortable implementing this into my business. Why? In hindsight, I have no idea why I thought it was so complicated, or maybe it was complicated and I'm just used to it now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down in as simply as possible how to implement this so you can put it in your business right away. I would say this is the single best decision, top 3 best decisions I've ever made as a business owner of implementing this. The quality of life of me and my employees on clarity as far as what we're doing is beyond worth any of the aggravation in implementing a new system. So anyway, let's dive in. This podcast is specifically for team leaders and broker owners. This is the one piece of content that I'm making that is not talking to the masses for real estate agents. I'm really just talking to people looking to run successful businesses, profitable business, grow faster, more profitably is really what we're all about here. And this is the start to finish podcast of showing me building my company, Onyx Homes, from almost start to finish. And if you want the closest possible look of how we're doing things, what we're building, go to our community we're building out. You can go to onyxhomes.com/school. I have the link on all the different places. So you can check out and be a part watching from the inside out. So anyway, let's dive into the content. So number one, first and foremost, I'm going to break this down on a simple zoom way out scale, and then I'm going to zoom way in and get a little bit tactical. So there's 2 different parts to this entrepreneur operating system, or EOS. The vision is the first and most important part. And then from there, you have traction. So think of vision being zooming way out. This is your 30,000 foot view. This is your big picture. And then traction, think of it as zooming way down to what are you going to do week over week to make sure that you're actually hitting your goals for the long term. So under vision, and we have a 2-page doc that is in the community if you want to check that out. Again, that's onyxhomes.com/school. That resource is available for you in there. But the vision breaks down into 4 major categories. One is you have your core values. What is your company all about? Number 2 is your mission. And honestly, I thought we had always filled these out, and it was like we kind of changed them every quarter because we just didn't really know how we felt about it. And over the last 6 months, we got really, really clear on what we're trying to do very long term. And when we were able to finally write down the mission where it's like, that's it, that's what we're doing, everything got a lot easier on the shorter term decisions. So you have your core values, you have your mission, and then from there, you have your 10-year vision or 10-year picture. 10-year vision. So from there, you do not need to know how to get to your 10-year. That's the most important part, is you just need to have an idea of what it looks like. But you want to be very specific, but no more specific than you need to be. So you don't want to be narrow, pigeonholed as like, I don't know how many deals I want to do. I don't know how many whatever. You want to be as specific enough as like, what do you want your life to look like? And then what does your business need to look like in order for that to happen? Or if you just are business minded, like frankly, I'm very business minded. My life will be a byproduct of my business. I'm not building my business because I want a certain lifestyle, if that makes sense. Some people are different. But if you want to say, oh, I want to live comfortably, it's like, well, what the hell does that mean? Does live comfortably mean you make $5 million a year? Or does it mean you make $50,000 a year? So you want to be clear and very specific. And, so that's the vision. So it's core values, your mission, 10-year vision and your 3-year picture. So you take that 10-year vision and you peel it back to where would I need to be 3 years from now to be on pace to hit that 10-year vision. Now, one thing that's also important to understand and realize when you're making a 10-year and then peeling it back to 3 is, let me just use easy numbers. Growth in business is not linear. And what I mean by that is, let's say you were starting from 0 today. You were starting your business today and you wanted to get to $1 million in profit 10 years from now. That doesn't mean you're going to make $100,000 in profit in year 1, and then year 2 it's going to be 200,000, 3 is 300, and 4 is 400. And you're not just going to go up by 100,000 every year. More than likely, you're probably going to make no profit in year, or like low profit in year 1, and maybe you can ramp to 200 or 300 pretty quickly, and then you might have a little bit of stall, but then you might go from 400 to 800 to $1.2 million really quickly. So your growth, if you're watching on YouTube, like your growth is very much J curve, on the sense of you're gonna hockey stick up towards the end. Getting from 9 to 10, that $1 million you add is way easier than the first million. Going from 5 to 10 is way easier than adding the first 5. So those are the things that I break down. So again, that's your vision, is your core values, mission, 10-year down to your 3-year. Now, from the flip side is your traction. Now, this is where, pun intended, the rubber hits the road, is you have a 1-year goal, or you have your 1-year goals. So you're going to have like your how many deals, how much GCI, how much revenue, all that stuff that we have to do. I would also mark down what is your total agent count, but then you're going to have like goals. So your goals could be, I want to hire a videographer. I want to hire a transaction coordinator. I want to hire a sales manager. We want to grow the team to 75 agents. We want to implement systems around organization. Like, for example, that was one of ours this year, was getting organized in implementing Monday.com, whatever your software you want to use is. Things like that. Those are your 1-year goals. Now, your 1-year goals should get you on pace, if you hit all of them, should get you on pace to hit your 3-year picture, right? Which should get you on pace to hit your 10-year. So you don't need to know how to get to the 10-year. You just need to know what to do in the next 90 days, which brings us to rocks. Now, rocks, I also explain as projects or 90-day goals. So think of it as your 1-year goals are pretty straightforward. And inside of those goals, you're going to need to do things. So for example, if your 1-year goal is to hit a 10% profit margin, what are the things that have to happen in order for you to hit that 10% profit margin? For us, it was lowering our overall cost of sales. Okay, cool. That's another goal, is we have to lower our cost of sales to 65% from 70. Got it. What do we have to do in order to do that? The first thing is we have to start generating more leads that do not have referral fees attached to it. That's like is a very real example. And okay, cool. How do we do that? We are going to make more content. Got it. Okay, what content? What is the thing we're going to do? And now we're at a rock. What is the thing that we're going to do in the next 90 days that is going to get us on pace to make more content, that's going to get us on pace to generate more leads that don't have referrals, that is going to get us on pace to hit our 65% cost of sales, that's going to get us to our 10% profit margin. But peeling all the way down to, we need to create the strategy to creating more content that'll generate leads. If you just did that in the next 90 days, you would be wildly successful in this 90 days. And then guess what? If you have the strategy this 90 days, the following 90 days, now you're going to be implementing that strategy and posting twice a day across all platforms for that strategy. And then 90 days later, you're going to have 90 days worth of content. And you're going to say, okay, let's replicate what worked the best, right? And you see how these rocks stack over time, to whereas 1 year later, the real goal was to get to a 10% profit margin, but there was all these projects or rocks that had to happen. Now, I'm going to go into more detail. So let me go back before I finish. So you have your rocks. Inside of the rocks, you then have your weekly scorecard and accountability. So I'll go into more detail in the second half, but let me just zoom back out. So we have vision, which is core values, mission statement, your 10-year vision, your 3-year picture, right? Your 3-year picture is just, where do you think you need to be in 3 years to be on pace to hit your 10-year vision? Flip side is traction. You have your 1-year goals. How you get to your 1-year goals are going to be your rocks, your 90-day projects. And then do you actually accomplish your 90-day projects, your rocks, is your scorecard and your accountability. Okay, so let's get super tactical here. Let's start with vision. This is your core values, is just like kind of how you do business. I will say we hire and fire based on our core values. So if we have a problem with an employee, if we have a problem with an agent on our team, we just run through our core values and we ask, is this person a team player? And if the answer is no, it's like, that's red flag. Is this person growth minded? If the answer is no, like, no on 2 core values out of 4 is not good. Is this person an action taker? It's like, no, they sit on their hands and wait to be a handout. No, they're not an action taker. No on 3 out of 4 is like automatic firing. No on 4 out of 4 is for sure automatic firing. And honestly, a maybe on 2 and a no on 1, like those are all red flags to hiring and firing. Also, when we're hiring people, we want to filter through those core values before anything. This is something I wish I would have paid more attention to earlier in my career. I thought it was nonsense, and it was, because I treated it like it was. And honestly, it was very eye-opening going to Alex Hormozi's workshops and really seeing his whole company. Their whole company really runs off their core values. And it was very impressive. And that's what we want to build with our company. So that's your core values. Your mission is your big why. Frankly, your big why can just be to make money. That's fine. It's going to be, I think, harder that way. There's a term that missionaries outperform mercenaries. Mercenaries are just there to make money. Missionaries are actually trying to make something better. But anyway, your 10-year vision, the reality here is you might want to or need to look further out. So for me, for example, my 20 or 30-year vision is way more clear than my 10-year. 10-year is really clouded in the sense of like, we've been doing this now for 2.5 years and we've got 7 more years to go. Like we're about to be at our first 3-year picture and we're going to hit it, which is crazy. So your 10-year vision, the year is less important than it needs to be far out. I think there's 2 ways to look at this. I would highly recommend writing out what your dream life is, like your true dream life. How many vacations you want to go on a year? How expensive are those vacations going to be? How much is your housing going to, like your dream house? How much is that going to cost? How much is your cars, your school? And like all figure out literally what it would cost on an annual basis to live your dream life. I did this. I have what I would consider to be rather high, like what I want my life to look like, which is not why why I want a large business, but it's a byproduct. And I was amazed at how low the annual income needed to be to hit my dream life. And it made it more like, oh, we're going to get there. Not like, oh man, this would be so cool. Like, no, it's like, oh, we're for sure going to hit that. And we're going to way surpass that if we just keep building the business we want. And then if you are business minded, like for me, for example, I'm business minded. So my personal life will, if I get anywhere near my business goals, my personal life, I will far surpass what I wrote down as my dream life. But some people are opposite. Some people build a business to support their dream life, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong either way. But I think writing that up makes it very easy, because what has to happen is your dream life and your vision, or at least the life you want to live, and your vision for your business have to be they have to talk to each other. They have to be married, because you can't say, I want to build this business and I don't want to work, unless you have employees and you can do that. But like, that's not realistic for most people. So you want to make sure that those 2 things are aligned. And frankly, you want to make sure your spouse is aligned in there as well too. So from your 10-year vision, you want to be in the right direction. So I use the example, and imagine your office. If you've seen pictures of our office, you'll see this. But this is how I explain it with our team. And I did an example last time we did business planning. I'll probably do it every time now. Is imagine your office, and you're standing in the middle of the office, and the conference room is on the opposite end. And I took an agent and I said, hey, let's blindfold. I grabbed one of the agents on the team. I said, let's blindfold you. And we blindfolded him. We spun him in the room over and over and over and over and over and over. And I said, all right, Miles, who is the volunteer, I said, go to the conference room. And we spun him around. He's blindfolded. He had no idea which direction was the conference room. And what ended up happening was he walked about 7 steps in circles. And then I said, hey, let's give him a little bit of pointers. Let's give him some help, right? Maybe he's getting coaching. Maybe he's getting mastermind. Maybe he's in a community. And people are saying like, oh, you're getting warmer, you're colder, you're getting warmer. And what happened was he stopped going in circles and started going closer to the right direction. And that is what I look at as if you do not have a vision, you are literally just going in circles. And I use the example as like every step you take is 1 year. And 10 years from now, if you want to be at the conference room and you take 5 steps in the wrong direction or 5 steps in a circle and you don't gain any ground, that's how most people run their business. And this is back to how I started this podcast of, Christian, how do you get so much done? It's because almost every single step we take in our business is going in the same exact direction. We are all rowing in the same boat, same direction. We are not scattered doing a lot of different things anymore. We used to, super guilty of that, but we don't anymore. So your 3-year is just, where do you need to be in 3 years from now to be on pace to hit your 10-year goal? Again, you do not know how to get to your 10-year, and that's fine, but you probably have a pretty good idea of what you need to do to get your 3-year. And we do. So that's where you want to be specific again and make sure that it's aligned. Okay, so that's your big vision and all of that. Now let's flip around to traction. So we're going to talk about your 1-year goals. Your 1-year goals should be super specific. I think you should have goals as a business, as a team leader, broker owner. You should have your standard goals of how many deals, how many agents we're going to have, how many deals we're going to do, average commission, GCI. Like, you have to have those numbers. The next thing is, what are the major goals we want to accomplish? For example, I said some of our goals for this year were to hire a videographer, to hire a office administrator, to hire a ISA. We ended up kiboshing that whole idea, going a different direction. But those were goals for the year. Another goal was to build out a podcast. And here we are. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. And that was a goal for the year, was to land on a strategy. And here we are before the end of the year actually filming. So all of these different things are goals. And then, as I used the example earlier, is from those goals, what are the rocks or what are the projects that need to happen in order to get there? So if I just said I'll use the same example I used earlier of profit margin. If I just said I want to get to a 10% profit margin, what do I need to do on a week-to-week basis to make sure I hit a 10% profit margin? I mean, there's really nothing I can do on a week-to-week basis other than just stare at the P&L to get to a 10% profit margin. But you ask yourself, and this is I'm gonna roll into the implementation frameworks that I've learned from acquisition.com and Alex Hermosi. And this was worth the $5,000 or whatever it was to go to their workshops. This was worth it alone, was just these frameworks. Is they operate their business, or they operate growing businesses based on what they call the theory of constraints. And the idea is, or the theory is, that a business will grow up until the point where it reaches its constraint, and then it will no longer grow until that constraint is fixed. Once it's fixed, the business will continue to grow until it reaches another constraint, and then it will stop growing again. And it doesn't necessarily the same constraint every time. Often it's something different. So for example, the second portion of this, before I give you the example, is your job as the CEO is to allocate very limited resources, especially in a small business. Your job as a CEO is to allocate very limited resources with unlimited opportunities and pretty much unlimited problems as well too. And your resources are your time, your money, your employees' time, your employees, not their money, but any resources like that. So your bandwidth of your team, all of that stuff. So if you look at the company and say, okay, what is our constraint right now? And if you can solve that constraint, your business will grow. Well, all of your resources should go to solving that constraint. So here's the example I'll share with you is, when we went into this workshop, we thought our problem was this one thing. And when we left, we realized our problem was we don't have enough agents to service the amount of leads we have. And what did we do? How do we solve that problem? Well, we recruit more agents. So we increased our recruiting budget. A lot of my time and resources went to making more content, running more ads, and fielding more interviews, doing more interviews, and recruiting more agents. And then all of a sudden, we started recruiting more agents. And immediately the next constraint was onboarding the agents, which is where we hired our office administrator. And that was no longer a constraint. So we kept recruiting. Now that we had an office administrator, we could recruit, instead of one agent a week, we could recruit 2 or 3. And Then we kept growing. And then the next constraint was we didn't have enough mentors for the newer agents. So we peeled back on recruiting a little bit. But the major constraint was not having enough leads or not enough agents to service all of our leads. That constraint was fixed. We had doubled or almost tripled the company size in 6 months because that was all of our focus. And moving forward now, today, our number one constraint is we are the opposite problem. We have more agents than we have leads. And what is the solution to that constraint? Well, we need to advertise more, and we need to make sure that we are controlling the advertising and we're not waiting on a vendor to send us more leads. So that is all of our resources right now are geared towards generating more company generated leads where we control the funnel. And over the last 2 quarters, a lot of my time, a lot of my resources has been built on building out funnels that are consumer facing, generating buyer leads, generating seller leads, and all of these different things. And we will not take our focus off of that until that constraint is fixed. And then we will find the next constraint. And that is the theory of how they grow businesses. I went in thinking that our constraint was our lead source, right? That Zillow was too much of our business, I thought was the number one constraint. And it wasn't. Our number one constraint was because I asked myself is, could we just do 10 times, like if Zillow sent us 10 times more leads, what would we do? Like, well, we would grow. We'd grow probably by 10 times. And so that's not the constraint. The constraint was we are not in control of lead volume and lead generation. So this is what we've been working on. So that's the theory of constraints. Now, as far as implementation framework, you've heard me say this already a few times, but this will help you understand how we think through this now. There's 2 frameworks that kind of live in one another. Is the what, how, who framework, and then the more, better, new. So under the what, how, who, you have what. So what you ask yourself here is, what are you going to do, right? It's like, okay, the constraint was we don't have enough agents to service our leads. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to recruit agents. Ask yourself every single time, no matter what, as silly as it sounds, how does this make me money? And well, more agents service more leads, more agents do deals, like that makes us more money. Got it. Okay. Is that going to make us more money than it costs is really the question there. And if it isn't going to make you more money, do not do it. There's a lot of times where we'll say a project, I'm super guilty of this. Oh, we're going to redo the website. It's like, is that going to make us money? Do we run any ads to the website? No. Like we've redone our homepage 2 or 3 times and it's never made us $1. Really brilliant waste of time. So anyway, the what is, what are you going to do and how does this make you money? The how is, how are you going to do that? And that is where you use the more, better, new framework. So the question here is, what are you doing that already works? And for us, paid ads has always worked for us. We've run Zillow, Realtor.com, Google pay-per-click. Like we've always done leads based on online lead generation. So the question was, can we do more of it? It's like, well, yeah, of course we can. We could just spend more money, generate more leads, build a better system around it. So then we just do 10 times more of what already works. And if you cannot do any more of what you're already doing that works, then you can look at doing something better. But do not move to better if you can just do more. So, for example, I have a buddy that runs a team, and he has about 80 listings active at all times. He crushes. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. Congratulations. Like, how much of your business is open houses? Like 20%. Wow, that's a huge, good job. Super profitable. How many agents do you have? 10. It's like, whoa. So you have 70 listings that have no open houses every weekend? Yep. Wow, can we just do more open? Can we recruit more agents to do more open houses? And like that 20% will be 80% before you know it. And it's like, oh shoot, that would be super profitable, super easy. And those are the little hinges that swing big doors. So the framework is more, better, new. The question is, can you do 10 times more of what you're already doing? If yes, just do it. The next question is, at some point, it'll make more sense, instead of doing more of what you're already doing, to do it better. So, for example, if you were knocking on doors and you were just saying, knock, knock, do you want to sell your house? At some point, doing 10 times more of that isn't going to be better than knocking on the door and like having an actual lead magnet, giving an offer, and having a better sales script. That'll work better than just knocking on 10 times more doors. The new is the absolute last thing. And this was always the first thing that I would jump to is I want to do something new. I want to do something fun. I want to do something exciting. And that has cost me a tremendous amount of money, a lot of brain damage, a lot of headache. It's cost my employees a lot of time and headache as well too. And we've pretty much completely stopped doing new. This podcast is, I guess, new, but we're doing content, and like this is just more content with the mic down in a different style. This is just more content is how I think of it. And then who's going to own it? So like this podcast is 100% me. Carly, other than editing and uploading, doesn't do anything with this because this is talking to me. I'm talking to myself 3 to 5 years ago when I was making tons of mistakes in the business. I wish I would have had somebody explaining, somebody who's running $1 billion team. I wish they would have said all the things not to do or why they were doing the things they were doing. So who's going to own it? So I own this podcast. Every single initiative you have is owned by one person. So our advertising funnel, I'm not the marketing manager. Carly's the marketing manager, but I own the advertising funnel for generating more leads. That is what I own. So that I'm working on that. Carly's working on something else. Both are marketing. Okay, so that is your implementation framework. So we have the theory of constraints. We have how to think like a CEO. The best CEOs think like investors, and you are investing your company's resources, your very limited resources against unlimited opportunities and problems. Your implementation framework is what, how, who. What are you going to do? How does this make you money? How are you going to do it? And more, better, new. And then who is going to own this? The last but not least, probably the most important, this is not last, I lied, is a scorecard. So you do what we call level 10 meeting every single week. This is the EOS system. You do a level 10 meeting every single week. This is a 90-minute meeting, and here's the agenda. 5 minutes of going over the scorecard, 5 minutes of addressing any drama that happened this week, 5 minutes of reviewing the rocks. Are we on pace to hit this rock? Are we going to complete it? 60 minutes of issues list. So identify, discuss, and solving problems. So in your business, we keep a running list of all the problems that are in the business right now, and we solve the most important problem for an hour once a week. And it is unbelievable how fast that hour and a half meeting goes. The last 15 minutes of it are going through your to-do list. So basically, whatever solutions you came up with, you probably made some to-dos. You're going to go through everybody's to-do list and make sure you're holding each other accountable. This is something we are working on doing a better job of. When you're doing a to-do list, every single to-do has to have a priority and an urgency. So how important is this and how urgently does it need to get done, and a to-do date? When we get in the habit of just throwing a lot of to-dos on there, we're like, oh yeah, I need to do all of these things. It's like, great. Well, what is the most important? If you have 100 things on your to-do list, you're not going to do all of them. Certainly not going to do them all today, this week. Which ones are the most important? If you could only get 2 things done on that whole list, which ones need to get done, have to get done, and which ones are going to move the needle the most? This will allow you to delete tasks that you set a month ago that aren't super important. It'll also hold your people accountable. It'll help you be accountable. This is something that absolutely plows the business forward. So back to that first question I asked at the intro of, Christian, how do you get so much done? That's how. We know the vision, we know the direction we're going. We know the 10-year, we know the 3-year, we know the 1 year, we know the rocks. And if I'm working on something that is not a rock, it is a complete waste of my time. It is not what I should be focusing on. And the scorecard is something that tracks your to-dos on your rocks. So let me break that. What does that mean? Building out your scorecard is, there's 2 aspects to this. You're going to have, number 1, the core numbers you have to know in your business. In our business in real estate, think of calls, conversations, appointments, contracts signed, opened escrows, closed escrows, or whatever you call them, volume, gross profit, the basic numbers. But then you're going to add on stuff for your rocks. And these are KPIs you're going to track every single week. So for example, our KPIs on this advertising funnel that we're running is we're looking to get our goal is to get our cost per lead under $10 and our cost per booking under $350. We got our cost per booking under $350, but our cost per lead is still $15. We need to get it below 10. So what needs to be done every single week? Well, we need to track our ad spend. We need to track our cost per lead. We need to track how many leads. We need to track how many pieces of creative we're putting out, right? There's different things that we can track every single week. How many new ads did Christian film? How many new pieces of copy did Christian write? How many, like, did we A/B test this week on the landing page to make sure that we're getting the landing page to work the best? Which landing page won, right? These are all items that we look at on the scorecard every single week. And you can do this with you should do this with all of your blocks. Now, don't get overwhelmed with too much information. You're going to know what's too much and what's not enough. You want to make sure you have everything that's important, but nothing else. So that is where you're going to look at your scorecard. You look at it for 5 minutes and you ask yourself at the end of it, are there any issues that came up this week based on the scorecard? If leads were 0, that might be an issue if you're used to having leads. If there was no offers written and no listing contract signed and you need 5 deals a week, that's an issue. If there were 0 calls made in the CRM this week, there's a huge issue, right? Those are things that are issues. But if calls are down by 10%, you did one less deal and you're like, those things aren't necessarily issues. And then for your issues list, you literally just continuously solve the most important problems in the business over and over and over and over and over again. You identify what the key problems are, you discuss the possible solutions, and then you implement the ideal solution. You give to-dos, and somebody has to own every issue, and everybody has to own the to-dos. One person has to own it. Otherwise, if 2 people are looking at each other like, I thought you were doing it, you're never going to get anything done that way. So when you create twos, you need to have urgency. How quickly does this need to be get done? You need to have the priority of it. How important is this? And then you need to have a due date, not a to-do date. This is the hard part, but it creates urgency around accountability in your company. This has been the hardest thing for us to implement, partially because we run really lean. We're growing very fast and we are understaffed, overworked, the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, us holding accountable, us meaning our internal admin team, it includes them holding me accountable. Like Carly, my marketing manager, our office administrator, like they hold me accountable. And like, Christian, we need you to film this stuff. We need you to make these ads. We need you to make these landing pages. Like, we need you to write these emails. We need you to recruit these agents, right? There is accountability here. And I need Carly to write scripts for me sometimes. I need Carly to do other things for me, right? There's mutual accountability here. And if one person isn't doing their thing, huge red flag. They either don't care, they're overworked, you need to take stuff off their plate, you need to be a good leader and CEO. So anyway, this is how I run my business. I recommend that you implement this today, like today. Go by the book, read Traction 5 times, implement it, listen to this once or twice. There's a lot of information in the school community as well too. So if you want the closest possible look at our business, Onyx Homes, as we grow it from start to finish, go to onyxhomes.com/school. Also, if you enjoyed this, do all of the things like subscribe, whatever platform you're watching this on, comment, do all the things. Most of all, if you found this valuable and you're a team leader, if you could share it with another team leader you think also needed to hear this EOS entrepreneur operating system plus like Hermosi backend. I make this content because I wish I would have had this when I was building my business. I know there's a lot of people saying that, but like I genuinely wouldn't have made a lot of mistakes if I would have been able to learn from somebody sharing the actual tactical stuff in between the origin story and the final finish. So this entrepreneur operating system was one of the best decisions, definitely top 3 I've ever made as a leader. That's the end of the podcast. So that's another one down. And this is the story of building Onyx Homes from start to finish. I'll see you in the next one.